Good evening and welcome again to Ideas at Work and Beyond. These are times that test men's souls. Let me take you back to April 27th, 1777. Captain Tryon of the British Army, with a flotilla of 26 ships, sailed up Long Island Sound and landed at Campo Beach in Westport. Over 150 soldiers disembarked and marched on Danbury. Yes, right where we're coming to you from here at Comcast Studios. Marched up and put to the torch the stores and military supplies that were held in Danbury, tents and flour and other essential military supplies for the then rebel army, what we refer to as a Continental Army. As he marched back to their boats, they heard that the Minutemen were forming under the leadership of none other than Benedict Arnold. And so they diverted and didn't come through Bethel, but came through a little town known as Ridgefield, Connecticut. And there on a rise, where now stands the Casagmo development, there on a rise is where the Patriots made a stand. And they said, no longer are we going to be unrepresented by a distant government that doesn't respond to our needs. And it was there under the leadership of Benedict Arnold, who unfortunately didn't end well, but at that time he fought quite heroically with General Wooster, who received a mortal wound to his leg as he attacked the tail end of the British column. But they put up a spirited battle. Benedict Arnold actually that day had 3 horses shot from underneath him. The last one they found had 9 mini balls embedded in the horse. So he was in the thick of the fight the entire time. Unfortunately, Captain Tryon and the superior trained British soldiers carried the day, and they held the town for about a day and a half. And they set up a cannon in front of the Episcopal Church, then it was the Church of England, and they started taking pot shots at different houses in Ridgefield. They took pot shots at homes of known patriots, one of which was a guy named Keeler. Today you can go to the Keeler Tavern, and embedded in one of the corner posts of that house, you can find a British cannonball. It's interesting because Keeler was a known rebel. He embraced freedom. He wanted to be represented by his government. He did not want to be dictated to by an elite from a distant land. So him and his other rebels fought the Revolutionary War, and it played out right there in Ridgefield. It's interesting because on that day that Captain Tryon marched out of Ridgefield back to his boats at Campo Beach, he marched right by Keeler's house. And as they were leaving, they would put to the torch any house of a known rebel. That day there was a strong north wind. And right next door to Keeler was a man named Hoyt, H-O-Y-T. And Hoyt was a Tory. He was true to the crown. He thought being controlled by a distant government that didn't represent him was just fine, because things were good. And the government gave him largesse, and he thought this was a great thing. So as Captain Tryon left town, Hoyt's house, which was immediately south of Keeler's Tavern, a hotbed of rebel activity, implored the British to not put the torch to Keeler's house, because if they did, there was a strong north wind and the sparks would carry over onto Hoyt's house, and his house would be consumed as well. So as the British left Ridgefield, they put to the torch known rebel homes and burned them to the ground as they marched back to their boats, having their nose bloodied, because to this day there are British soldiers, actually Hessians, German mercenaries at the time, still buried in the town of Ridgefield because of that battle on April 27, 1777. So as Captain Tryon left and went back to their boats in Westport at Campo Beach, he was asked by Hoyt not to put to the torch Keeler's house because he was afraid it would catch his house on fire. Well, after the British had left, Keeler came back out of the woods with his other rebel members, and Hoyt, in a rather haughty fashion, by the way, much like Al Robinson will be later in the show when he talks about the passing of health care, But Hoyt, in a rather haughty way, said, "Aye, Keeler, aren't you going to thank me for not having your house put to the torch?" And Keeler responded to Hoyt and said, "I will not thank you or any other Tory traitor. I will thank the Lord for a strong north wind." That actually happened in Ridgefield, Connecticut on April 27, 1777, when the British, the oppressive government that was being fought again during the Revolutionary War, passed through Ridgefield. It was the sharpest and most bloody engagement of the Revolutionary War fought in Connecticut, and we have a little picture of that that appeared in the London papers at the time. What the heck is my point? I often get asked that by my wife and others. This is my point. At present, I feel the passing of this health care reform bill against the will of the people of the United States, as represented both in the election in Virginia, the election in New Jersey, and probably most emphatically in the election of Massachusetts, where the person that ran, Scott Brown, said, "I will be the 41st vote against this health care bill." And in the hotbed, in Ted Kennedy's state, he won a statewide election. Not only that, but also Barney Frank. He won Barney Frank's district in that vote. Overwhelmingly, at every turn, the people of the United States said, "Do not expand the IRS by 15,000 agents. Do not impose this burdensome tax burden on the entire population. Do not pass this health care bill as it is in the condition that it is right there. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." But through backroom deals and political compromises, from the Nebraska buyout to the Louisiana purchase to the Gatorade thing, everyone getting special deals, including the congressman from Michigan that ended up getting money for some airports, so he finally collapsed. They were able to squeak through this bill. And now there is a number of people in this country and in the state of Connecticut that feel as if something has been shoved down their throat against their will. Going back to the Battle of Ridgefield, at that time, the population divided up in round numbers in three groups. There was one group, the rebels, that wanted their freedom, that were spoiling for a fight, and were willing to see this thing through and did not want to see their freedoms taken away. There was another group that was true to the crown, that felt that, hey, you know what, being under the wing of Mother England isn't so bad. Look at all the benefits we're given. So we're giving up a little freedom. So we just have to take the dictates of an elite from a far-off capital. And then there was another third, and that group of people were just sort of like, hey, look, I'm not looking for trouble. I think the Queen's got a lot to say that's good. I think these rebels are okay. I'm just going to sit back and see how this whole thing shakes out. Well, I think President Obama said it best when he had that fake roundtable discussion with the Republicans to talk about health care, where he marched everyone in and we heard about the one, I think her name was Strange, the congressman, or Savage, talk about some lady that had to take her dead sister's dentures, and somehow this is because we're not paying enough in taxes that she had to do that. At that meeting he said, you know what? That's what elections are for. And luckily for us, unlike the Patriots that fought in Ridgefield in 1777, we don't need to bear arms. We can win this thing at the ballot box. And right now before us, I don't know which third you come down in, but I'm beginning to feel a little put upon. I'm beginning to rally to that flag that says, don't tread on me. I have spoken out against this health care bill, against this crushing burden of taxes, and especially in the state of Connecticut, where we have to work until like the middle of June to pay all our state, local, and federal taxes. When is enough enough? I'm beginning to feel a little put upon, and I'm a little concerned, and I am going to do everything I possibly can to try and see that Jim Himes and Chris Murphy and all those people that cast a vote against the will of the people for this health care bill are no longer representing us in Congress come November. And I don't know how you feel, but when Barack Obama says, hey, that's what elections are for, Mr. President, you're absolutely right. That's what elections are for. And as far as I'm concerned, game on. I'm ready to go. And let's see. Let's have a good, spirited public debate. And let's see if the general tone of the United States is we want to have a government much like they have in Europe, where everything is taken care of by the federal government. All you have to do is just give up your freedom. Just give up your liberties. Just give up your opportunity to choose how you're going to live your life. And if you do that, nanny government will take care of everything. Just you wait and see. I don't believe it for a minute. I think this country was found on those same patriots that fought at the Battle of Ridgefield. And that is where I will cast my lot. And that's what I'd like to see going forward. So, in a way, I'm spoiling for a fight. Mr. President, you're right. Game on. Let's have a debate. Jim Himes, Chris Murphy, anytime you want to come in here and speak to the folks in this district and explain why you voted for this health care bill, you're more than welcome. Jim Himes said he was going to come in and he later canceled. But this studio is open to you, and we'd like to have a spirited debate. So that's my thought for the day. I feel a bit of a kindred spirit with the Revolutionary War patriots that fought, and they embraced freedom. And it's that freedom and that free market capitalism that built this country. And I'm slowly but surely seeing that slip away. This health care bill passing is just another example of that, and it's got me spoiling for a fight. So, game on. I'm delighted tonight, as before, to invite Dave Straight. Thank you very much for putting up with my little stream of consciousness.
It's terrific.
That picture I have up in my house, Battle of Ridgefield. It's a pretty interesting
Well,
story.
you referenced the flag "Don't Tread on Me." That went up. That went up 2 weeks ago in my pasture.
Is that right?
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anyways. You're good with the nuts and bolts. I'm a big picture guy. I'm a more broad brush. What have we gotten ourselves into, and what are we looking at?
Well, appreciate it. Thanks, Marty. Thanks for welcoming me back on your show.
Yes.
And also wanted to thank the other 10 people that you requested that they appear on the show that they couldn't make it to make room for me tonight. So.
That's right. They're pretty impressive guys that we had lined up, and we cleared the deck so you could be there.
Thanks. Just wanted to make a quick comment. Kathy, my wife, and I stopped in at Bethesda Naval Hospital last week down in Bethesda, and we stopped in to visit a person who's a very dear friend of ours. We've known him for years. His name is Matt Kudelik, and he's served this country in Afghanistan for the past year and suffered a very, very serious injury down there. Fortunately, he's expected to recover, but I just wanted to say a special thanks to Matt Kudelik for his dedication and commitment to serving this country.
And he was shot in the leg?
Yep, shot right in the leg below the knee. And
while serving in Afghanistan?
Right.
And when did this happen? Recently?
Yeah, it was 3 weeks ago. Okay. And one of the guys under his command picked him up and carried him 150 yards and got him to safety. He's had 6 surgeries and almost lost the leg, so he's got a steel plate in there now.
God bless him.
Yeah, it's terrific. Is it okay if we start with the pop quiz?
Sure, I'm ready for this. And by the way, I have not been, I don't know if this is a quiz for me, but let's go right ahead. I do not know the answers.
So this is unrehearsed. This is what big government entitlement program has ever reduced the deficit?
Let's see. The fight against poverty. President Johnson. No. Medicare, Medicaid. No. Fannie Mae. No. I can't really think of any.
None.
Okay.
Got it.
Although what this Obamacare has been presented as this big deficit reducer.
Right. Okay. Because you pay into this program for 10 years to get 6 years of benefits out of it.
Okay.
So that's like you working for 5 years to afford 1 year of your cost of living and think that that's a good deal. Anyway, next question. You're batting 100%.
Thank you.
What big government program, again, only cost what it said it would cost and actually lowered the cost of goods and services?
Lower the cost of goods and services. I'm thinking back to when Social Security was introduced and the estimated cost on that. I think it's gone up about 1,000-fold. Medicare, I would say again, none.
Okay. 100%. You're doing good.
Okay.
Name a big government entitlement program that has ever improved quality.
Improved quality. You know, I heard that the Canadians are very upset with us right now because as we migrate towards a Canadian single-payer system, where are the Canadians going to go to get the really good health care? Like when the premier of Newfoundland needed to have heart surgery, he came to the United States. So they're a little frustrated. I saw Ann Coulter went up there. She did not receive very much Canadian hospitality. So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Which government program ever improved quality?
Improved quality. I'm trying to think. There are more MRI machines in suburban Washington, D.C. than there are in the entire country of Canada. They have federalized or socialized medicine. I can think of none.
Bingo, 100%.
Okay.
I'm going to group a few of these.
Okay.
All right. Same thing. Which name the big government?
By the way, like a Yugo was made by the government of Yugoslavia. Right, a Yugo, wasn't that
I'm not even sure.
I think that's what that is what. Yeah, generally speaking, governments do not pour out the best goods and services as a general rule.
Okay, so name the big government entitlement program that enhanced efficiency or decreased delays or fostered more choice and competition.
Let me think. Amtrak. I don't see them knocking it out of the park.
Post office, they're doing pretty good.
Post office, I've waited in line quite a bit. If I really want to get something, I'm on the phone with FedEx in a heartbeat. I'm trying to think. UPS versus a post office. I'm going to go none.
You're just on a tear tonight. Okay. One last one. We're going to group these. Which big government program has ever featured competent bureaucracy, operated...
Isn't that an
oxymoron?
Oxymoron. Yeah. Jumbo shrimp, competent bureaucracy. Okay.
That's right. Operated with honest accounting, avoided fraud, abuse, waste, maddening red tape, and higher taxes.
Well, I remember watching 60 Minutes, and they had a whole show on Medicare abuse, which is, by the way, one of the, already you have the federal government running a ton of the health care, and it's the abuse is just unbelievable as they churn out these checks to whoever claims that they need a check, and then they finally send an FBI guy down to this storefront in Miami, and these people are gone. But all that money's been going into their account because they said they needed wheelchairs. So, yeah, no one's minding the store. Efficiencies and opportunity for corruption and fraud is ripe. So I would say, again, none.
Bingo. 100%. Got them all right. I saw a great cartoon last week. It was a gentleman sitting in the post office, and he said, the bad news is we're really struggling at the post office. Good news is we're moving into health care. So, anyway, there was a poll that was taken this last week. Well, actually, it was over the course of the last few weeks. And the survey suggested that 46% of the physicians would quit or retire if Obamacare became law. And that's at a time where we actually have to increase the number of people in the health care by 21%.
All right, so give me that again.
46% of the people that are in health, doctors that are in health care, would quit or retire.
If Obamacare passed.
Right.
Right, okay.
Right. So on top of that, we need an additional 20% of more doctors just to cover the additional 30 million people. We've got a real problem on our hands. Last time I was on the show, we talked about where we came from, where we are, and we just started to touch on where we need to go.
Right.
And we talked about the best way, the first step in getting out of a really deep hole is to quit digging. Right. And so what I want to do is just touch base on, I always hate the gloom and doom stuff. I really want to focus on how we get out of this.
You hate the gloom and doom. I do too. I mean, I can remember when, a Republican is in the White House and everyone's coming after Bush. I remember the bumper sticker, there's a village in Texas that's missing their idiot. I can remember them coming after Bush and saying, Harry Reid said the war in Iraq is lost. And I remember going all the way back to Spiro Agnew. He called them nattering nabobs of negativity. and frankly, it just goes against my DNA to be hypercritical of this program or the government. I want to feel like I have some say in my government. But what's happened over the last I guess it's been 14 months on this Medicare, on this Obamacare situation, where over and over again, through any avenue that the public possibly could, from public opinion polls to other things, they say we don't want this, we don't want this, and then it passes anyways. The sense of disconnect and the sense of alienation from what's supposed to be a government for the people, of the people, and by the people is really, it just leaves a terrible taste in your mouth. Right. And I guess my question is, going forward, we can, I mean, we're sort of having fun with this. We can hack on, what's going on. If there's some benefits to be had from Obamacare, I think that's great. Maybe some of the, no pre-existing conditions. Having a 23-year-old daughter at home that's living in my basement, this idea that she can stay on her parents' health insurance until they're 26, she's sort of penciled in another 3 years, which, honey, I love you, but we really need to rethink that. But see, I've lost my train of thought. Al's in the control room, and he's going to come out and gloat because we're going to get the other part of all this too. So it isn't wall-to-wall Republicans here. But I don't want to necessarily be a nattering nabob of negativity. I mean, I have a sense of Reagan optimism. I think that, as Newt Gingrich says, this won't stand. I think that we still can rise up and throw off what's happened. If a representative isn't representing you, you have an election every 2 years, at least in Congress. Jim Hines and Chris Murphy right now, I think, are very much in trouble. Maybe more than they think, because they still have that heady sense in their head from drinking the champagne with the Speaker Pelosi and the boys down there. They're coming back to their districts, and I don't even think they realize, having been in the Beltway so long, the reaction of people that they're going to have to what they've done, essentially usurping our democracy and not representing the people. So I don't want to be critical. It's not my nature. My nature is the glass is half full, it's not half empty. But I do think that I'm engaged. When Obama says that's what elections are for, he's right. That's what elections are for. But sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So we were talking about where we go from here.
Yeah.
And as I see it, there are only if we continue on the current path.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the passage of that Obama, as known as Obamacare,
yeah.
I'd actually call that Madoff care, because it's a giant Ponzi scheme, and it's so. We took a good lesson from Madoff's playbook in passing that, because that will be very, very disastrous, and the cost will be incredible. But anyway, I see really three ways out of the situation if we continue on this current path. One is debt forgiveness. Now, there is some historical basis for that. We saw it in Greece, we saw it in Rome. We did it for Latin America. We did it for Europe after World War II. We did it for Africa when Bush was president. So there is a history of debt forgiveness. We talked a couple of weeks ago and we said the U.S. deficit is close to $100 trillion. That will never be repaid.
Yeah.
And Alan Greenspan appeared and gave a speech, and he said, well, most of us are thinking, hey, maybe the worst of this is behind us. His comment was, I have no idea how our country is going to overcome the hurdles that lie ahead.
This is Alan Greenspan.
Yeah.
Okay, a raging, mindless conservative just babbling on cable television again. Alan Galdang Greenspan.
That's right.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a possibility of debt forgiveness. Another possibility is default. I mean, we're seeing that with one of the UBS, or I think it was a UBS analyst came out and said, there's a possibility, very real possibility, that Greece defaults. He's guessing that Greece defaults.
Right.
We saw that Portugal had their credit rating downgraded. We know that Italy is not far behind, and Spain is facing similar tough times. So we're likely to see default in sovereign debt. Unfortunately,
you're talking about the United States defaulting on its debt.
Well, it's interesting because the U.S. is right now a reserve currency, so they can always print as much money as they want.
Right.
So
That is handy. The federal government can. Unfortunately,
right.
They don't have printing presses in Hartford that can print Connecticut dollars. So
right.
they have to balance their budget, but that's a whole other story. John Fry had a great article in the Ridgefield Press today about what he's up against in Hartford right now. Is they're looking at $3 and $4 billion deficits. But go ahead.
Unfortunately, the only other option out of this fiasco that we find ourselves in is social unrest. And we're seeing that with the protests in Greece right now, and you just can't rule out. I mean, that's where our nation has its history, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't rule out that something extreme could happen even in America. So, anyway, so what are the steps out? I'm going to propose a few steps that may help get us out of the quagmire that we find ourselves in. We talked briefly last time about establishing energy independence. And right now, our deficit is around $420 billion. Trade deficit is around $420 billion a year. About $300 billion of that is in oil and energy alone. Up until now, America has not committed itself to energy independence. Now, complete energy independence is years and years away. However, what are some of the things we can do? One of the things we can do is, go with what we know. We need more nuclear power. We need more coal. We need more drilling. We have to focus on conventional energies because all the capital that we're pouring into green energy is starving the sector that can produce energy today. There was a study that came out that said that over the next 10 years, green energy programs are going to cost us $2.6 trillion in lost energy. So it's very costly to continue to go as hard as we're going right now on green energy.
Well, I remember last year when gas was up at $5 a gallon. We looked at the ANWR reserve in Alaska and the amount of oil and natural gas that they have there. I mean, it's just phenomenal. The amount of oil that we have just off the shore of Florida is phenomenal. But you know who's drilling out there?
The Russians.
The Chinese.
Oh.
The Chinese are drilling out there under Fidel Castro, who, by the way, if you caught it today, Fidel Castro gave a resounding endorsement of Obamacare. Right. But Fidel Castro, he's reaping the benefits of leasing this land, and China is drilling the oil. We have vast reserves of oil, especially in ANWR in the North Slope of Alaska, that are just sitting there untapped, and it's a travesty. I couldn't agree more.
Right. Actually, the Russians, it was announced this last week that the Russians are drilling in the Gulf of Mexico.
Are they really?
Right.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Well,
okay. Yeah.
Love to have them. Now, here's something kind of exciting, and this is new. This came out this week.
Is this good news?
This is.
Give me something good.
This had me more excited than anything I've read this year.
Okay.
That's pretty exciting, really.
That's pretty exciting, yeah.
And this is positive.
Okay.
Texas University, this was in a report on business. Anyway, Texas University has a eureka moment for coal and gas. So at let's see, it says researchers at the University of Texas at Arlington announced last month that they have developed a clean way to turn the cheapest kind of coal, lignite coal, common in Texas, into synthetic crude. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Through this conversion process, using lignite coal, lignite coal has the lowest amount of BTUs of any coal out there.
Okay.
So let's say, coal's used. I don't want to get into too much of the uses of coal, but the BTUs range from, say, 6,000 BTUs up to 11,500 BTUs. So there's a wide range. Lignite coal, there's really no practical use for it. It's very, very common, but it's not in high demand. Anyway, they can convert lignite coal at $18 a ton into gasoline at, pick a number.
I would say $2.85.
28 cents a gallon.
Wow.
Staggering.
That's good.
That's very exciting. So, and we have approximately known reserves globally to supply all the fuel to vehicles for 210 years.
in this type of coal
Right.
with this conversion.
Right.
All right.
This is exciting.
So there is good news out there. I'm just wondering politically, and I'd like to have Al Robinson join us if he's available. He seems to. He's ever since the vote. He predicted this last Thursday. He's been, giggles like a schoolgirl. I actually saw him skip to his car. He was so excited that the government was going to take over all of our health care and just provide everything for us. All you have to do is just give more money in taxes, and just rest assured that the government's going to run something better. So if Al Robinson is here, I'd love to have him join us if it's possible. We're juggling directors and stuff like that. And I'd also, on a serious note, like to talk about going forward how the political discussion, the national debate is going to take place, because I do think that there's a legitimate debate that needs to happen, and you know, good people, men of honor, men of responsibility can disagree on this issue one way or the other. But there's something that happened to Al recently that I'd like to highlight, and just to point out how the political discussion cannot go forward in a pluralistic society, because people can disagree.
Sure.
Even within my own family, the young boy that was at the signing of the Obamacare thing, you know, the young child who was there, apparently is a friend of my niece's in Seattle, and so she was very thrilled about it, as are my sisters. They think everything that's going on is just wonderful, and you know, maybe I'm missing something here with all this. We're losing our freedom stuff, but it's something that I feel passionately about.
Sure.
But when Al joins us in just a minute, I'd like to get his take on this, because by a show of hands, I'm surprised at people's acquiescence, in a sense, to this. I think there's been a bump in some of the polls. I think once people get tied into this, the benefits of this program, they're going to be very less likely to want to disengage from it. I think the Democrats and the progressives and the liberals are essentially counting on that. You know, that people are going to feel like, hey, there are all these benefits, and you know, we're gonna get locked in on that. So without any further ado, as we speak, just getting the microphone issues set up, is Al Robinson. By the way, Al Robinson has a blog. It's called Hat City Blog. It seems to be pretty popular. All I know is a lot of Republicans are very scared about coming on this show, because Al Robinson will be on, and they're afraid. And I will say,
that's what they are. Don't want to come on.
It's frightening. It's frightening how he's actually been fairly accurate on his predictions, from the fact that, you know, this health care bill was going to pass, when really everyone, especially after the Massachusetts election, felt like, you know, this thing was totally dead. I'm still wondering how the whole thing happened. But we are joined by Al Robinson, who's here.
Come on, how much longer we got to hear this stuff? You've been monologue for 15 minutes, whining.
Al, by the way, if you'd like to call in, the number is 792-4101. If you agree with me, please call in. By the way, there was a picture floating around the internet. It was the seal of the Democratic Party. Did you ever see this one with the crying baby?
No.
There's this like crying baby, the United States seals of the Democratic Party. I feel like we need one for the Republican Party, because, I mean, I'm bummed. I'm bummed about this health care thing.
You sound so upset. You know what I'm going to do from now on? Since this monologue was record, by the way, it was 13 minutes long before you stopped and you took a breath.
But don't you like the comparison with the Battle of Ridgefield? And
it was nice.
It was nice. Defending liberties, taking a stand.
It was still a long whine. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get a soundtrack of a baby crying, and I'm going to slowly increase the volume as longer you go on with your monologue.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be full crying mode up around 10 minutes.
E-Trade commercials with the little babies there.
Throwing up on themselves.
Throwing up. Now I'm going to show you my surprise face. Luckily, none of us have any money left over, so we don't have to worry about it with stockbrokers. But anyway, what the heck happened?
I guess.
And what do you think are the prospects for the two candidates in these districts, Jim Himes and Chris?
Well, let's see. Let's start with the candidates. That's great. You had a candidate, Sam Caligiuri, who was on here a few weeks ago.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems with Sam is he has virtually no money whatsoever. You would think strong candidate, if you're strong, running good.
Didn't Pelosi come into the district to do a fundraiser? Oh, that was for Chris
I don't know.
Murphy.
You had, what, 15 minutes to go? I mean, you're quick draw today. You're a little touchy. Touchy.
I'm a little upset.
You're a little upset. You're a little upset.
I'm feeling a little alienated in my country. Okay, I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
You felt alienated for like the last, 3 or 4 years now? We've been kicking your tails? But Sam Caligiuri has what? How much money? Under $100,000?
He's got $6.75.
Exactly.
Because he just went through the Starbucks drive.
Enough to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
That's not enough to run against Chris Murphy. You had great candidates such as David Cappiello, who was well-known in Danbury, a very well-known person in the state Senate. Sam Caligiuri, I mean, once his record comes out and he shows that he's like screaming against earmarks, but when in fact he did support certain earmarks like getting over $200,000 for a YMCA park in Waterbury, those things start to come out. And again, the fact that you don't have any cash at this point and you have other candidates who are coming in, which brings me to the 4th district. You have, 6 candidates right now running for the Republican nomination. Usually if you have a strong candidate, the other ones weed out, everybody circles the wagon, especially with Republicans, because Republicans don't like primaries. Unlike Democrats, Republicans can't stand primaries. They always like circling the wagons around one candidate and going forward. You got 6 now. And of those 6, you have like wars going on between Russo and DiVasella. You have somebody to the far right in Merkel. And you got people all over the place going nuts. And it's going to make a very interesting primary to see who gets the money between the Republicans while one candidate, Jim Himes, is just raking it in. And we'll see what happens to the whole health care vote, because I don't believe a word you say in terms of health care. I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to destroy Democrats. In fact, if you look at the current polls, the last 3 polls that came out, CBS, USA Today, and Gallup actually showed that the support for health care went up after the vote. So
you don't see this big backlash brewing?
I see it that first of all, I'm very happy that it's over. I'm happy the debate's over. I'm happy that the lies are over. I'm happy that people will stop saying that death panels, rationing of health care, single payer, government takeover of health care, because it's not true. It's not true.
So the government is not going to play a role in who gets what medical care.
Again, that was what it was said. It was said government takeover of health care, such as the Canadian system, such as the French system. We are not having that in that bill. That was not what was in that bill. And that was repeated constantly, time and time again, on top of death panels, health care towards illegal immigrants, and other things that were just outright lies. And I said on this show for months, if not over a year, that those things were just absolute lies.
Let's take one of those. Okay, let's say
government take over health care. You want to go with that one?
Well,
I would love to go with that one. Or Canadians, your favorite one, Canadian style health care.
Right.
You kept talking about Canada and the United States, and I came on here last week, almost went ballistic, saying, Marty, you got to stop saying that. The health care plan that's being put through, the proposal of the bill that was being put through, had nothing to do whatsoever with single-payer health care.
Okay.
And you and a lot of conservatives kept linking that, and that's dishonest.
Okay, so you don't think that the die is cast, that now we are headed towards a single.
That's a different type of language that you're using, Marty, and you know it. It's a different type of language that you're using.
One of your guys, he's the senator from Iowa. I believe he said, "This is kind of like a starter home." Didn't he say that?
What did you say? What did you say on this show for the last year? You did not say it's a starter to this. You said this is government takeover of health care. This is government health care like the Canadian system. Look, I can go through the YouTube clips and run it.
Okay, but my point is that this is the first step towards a single-payer system. Now let me finish.
That's the change of your. That's a complete change on what you've been saying weeks, months prior, and you know it is.
Well,
you never said that before. You never said it like that before, Marty.
I'm comparing my knee surgery to my brother-in-law's liver cancer, and in comparison of the 2 ways that those treatments were taken care of. My stupid knee was taken care of like that. His much more serious situation in Canada, by the way.
What does it have to do with what does that have to do with the health care reform bill?
I'll tell you exactly what it has to do.
Okay.
Because my sense, and I'm going by what your folks are saying, it's a starter home. It's just the beginning. Don't worry, we'll get the rest later. I can show you videotapes of Barack Obama speaking to a union hall and saying, I am in favor of a single-payer system.
A lot of Democrats, including myself, are in favor of a single health care. But it isn't that. If we wanted single-payer, it would have went through. The people have spoken, the representatives of Congress represented the people and saying, like, they don't want the public option. That's why the public option was removed from the Senate bill.
So when you control Congress, when you control the House of Representatives, you control the White House, you control the Senate. By the way, you might not be so good at the Supreme Court the way you browbeated
Come on,
during the thing. But that might be where this whole thing's decided.
You're filibustering. Come on.
This is my point. Since you control all this, and your leaders are talking about this is how we now control the people. You had Al Sharpton say, well, you guys voted for socialism. This is what you had. What was it, Harkin? Is that the senator in Iowa?
Your point.
Okay, my point is that your folks, the leadership of the liberal Democrats, are saying this is a starter house. We're on our way. Don't worry about it. We'll get the rest later.
Again,
let's just get this thing.
We have both chambers of Congress, both chambers of the Congress, and the presidency.
Right.
No single payer went through. None. In fact, let me finish. In the Senate, we had 60 votes. It still didn't get through. So in that scenario where we have a massive advantage of the majority of Congress, we could not get single payer through. In what scenario do you see ever single payer getting through if we couldn't get it through right now?
Well, I would just.
I'm just asking the question.
Okay, I'm answering it.
All right, go ahead.
Your senator from Iowa said that this is a starter home. We can add to it later.
You're not answering my question.
That's how I think it's going to happen.
It's going
to be a gradual thing. That's what I think.
If you can't get it through with a 60-seat majority in the Senate, with a huge majority, almost a supermajority in Congress. In fact, in Connecticut, we have a supermajority in both houses. We couldn't get anything close to like a group insurance plan in the state level. And in what scenario, because of course in 2010, we're obviously going to lose some seats in the House, in what scenario do you see a single payer going through a Congress dominated by Democrats if we couldn't get it through now?
Well, I think that it would be a gradual process. That's what I think. That's what I think.
So the Democrats will have to have more of a majority than 60 seats in the Senate?
Maybe
that'll never happen.
I don't know. Not more of a
majority. Can I take a shot at that one?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Well,
he's having trouble with it.
I'm not having trouble with it.
Well,
how do you get it passed? You can quote whoever you want to quote. It's not going to. You can say whatever you want to say. It's not going to pass Congress. It just won't happen.
Well, that's what I thought about this health care, and it sure enough did pass Congress because it was jammed down our throat. And here we sit with 15,000 more IRS agents, and they're coming after you if you don't buy an insurance.
And all polls show, by the way, that people supported the public option all the way through this whole health care process, something that's not been talked about. They never talk about the wishy-washy way of those polls where some people didn't understand some people who disapproved the health care plan didn't disapprove because they hated the health care plan, because some people didn't feel it was liberal enough, which was reflected in the polling data after the vote was done.
So I guess
according to CNN, according to CBS.
If everyone was in favor of this, then all these Democrats and blue dog Democrats that voted in favor of this, they should have no problem with it at all getting reelected. They should be lauded for their vote.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that your single payer scenario will never happen in Congress.
Well, hold it. I really appreciate your optimism on that. I really do.
Go ahead, please.
But think about this. Who would have ever thought that the government would take over 90% of all mortgages that are being written in America? 20 years ago, people would have said, oh, that'll never happen, that'll never happen. You know what? The government did it. Whoever thought that the government would take over all the auto manufacturing in America minus Ford? Nobody. Whoever thought that the federal government would take over all of the financial institutions? Nobody. So the thought that it never happens, I 100% agree with Marty. This is the first step. That they were content to take the first step. The end game is 100% the government taking over Medicare.
You're comparing those scenarios that you just brought up that were due because of a quote-unquote crisis compared to like health care takeover.
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Please tell me.
Okay,
that's very
I'll tell you exactly why. Because in this bill, when this bill was passed, it was sold to us. Remember Nancy saying this will create 400,000 jobs on day one. An independent study came out, nonpartisan independent study came out and said this is going to cost 600,000 jobs. Caterpillar and Deere came out this week and announced they're taking write-downs of $100 million this year to try and accommodate this program. Medicare, in this bill, in order for this bill to be revenue neutral, they're claiming that it's going to cut Medicare costs by 21%, and they're putting another 4 million people on Medicare. There are already there are already medical facilities, including Mayo, Walgreens, they're not taking Medicare at all. How are you going to cut Medicare costs by 21% when nobody's going to pay them?
Again, you're bringing up one type of polling data that you'll support because it's supporting your mindset. But the CBO report that came out, all the conservatives that I brought up last week, like, oh, no, those funny numbers and all that stuff. The nonpartisan CBO report that showed exactly what this thing would do based upon their estimates. A nonpartisan has nothing to do with any Republican or Democrat, completely independent. Just like the OPM here in Connecticut, our OPM is the Office of Policy and Management. For those people who don't know, they're used up at the state capitol to put together calculations on certain bills to show people how much these things would cost. CBO is exactly the same, and they are saying not what you're saying right there. In fact, they're saying that it will save us, what is it, $1.2 trillion over 20 years?
But Al, you pay into it for 10 years to get six years benefits.
Is the CBO report wrong?
Neutral?
Is the CBO report wrong?
If you finagle the numbers the way they did it,
so
yes,
you're saying they're finagling the
finagling the numbers.
Again, it's outrageous. I think it's outrageous that people will take your numbers. Like, what did you say? Like 46% of the doctors are going to like retire because of this.
In a poll that was taken, yeah.
What poll was that from? Well, can I have that information? The polling data and all that? Because it's hard to say the word poll. I'd love to see the polling data on that. You can put it up online. We'll put it up online and let the people look at it, and we'll really look into to find where that polling data came from. Because it's surprising that you can take that polling data, but you can't take the polling data or the information from a nonpartisan government agency that tells you exactly what this is going to, which is respected by Republicans and Democrats, respected by both parties for years.
Well,
in fact, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in fact. The earlier version of health care, where the CBO said, no, this is going to raise the deficit, Republicans embraced it. Said, look, it's going to raise. So the later modifications of health care, in which they came out with a different calculation, the Republicans are all now rejecting.
I'm saying any government program, first of all, is going to underestimate costs. Second thing, I'm saying adamantly that this is it's an insult to every intelligent American to be content with the notion that you can comfortably pay into a program for 10 years and only get 6 years of benefit and somehow feel good about it.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. I'm sure there is. I'm sure. I think you're being somewhat simplistic about it. I'm sure there's a lot more to this very complex bill than just simple as that.
No,
I don't want to filibuster the whole show. I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Let me just kind of switch gears here, because a lot of what we're talking about here is academic at this point, because it is the law of the land now. Obamacare and everything else that was in that 2,500-page bill is the law. The IRS agents
reconciliation, and it just said the House just passed the reconciliation package, so it's done.
Okay, yeah, and you know, as you predicted, wise Al Robinson, which is a frightening thing. And so now it's the law of the land. But I guess there's a certain portion of this country that feels as if this was implemented through backroom deals against the will of the majority of the people.
Against the will of the majority of the people, yeah. It's funny how Republicans can talk about against the will of the majority of the people when we had a war in which the majority of the people in this country were absolutely opposed to it.
Okay, well let's take that.
Which cost billions upon trillions of dollars.
Wasn't there a vote?
You said that Iraq was responsible for 9/11 in a show a few years ago.
Okay, wasn't there a vote in Congress for that? I suppose you're talking about Iraq. Wasn't there a vote in Congress to declare war? I'll answer that. There was.
There was a vote to declare war.
Yeah, there was a vote in Congress to give the president the right to go to war.
Not the Tonkin Plan, but a vote to declare war against Iraq.
No, the Tonkin Plan was in Vietnam.
I'm just saying.
Okay, but the
rationale behind that Tonkin Plan was what? Not to just bypass the whole declare war so the president can go on and just do what he wants to do.
Who do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Hillary Clinton? You want to talk about Joe Biden? Who do you want to talk about? They all voted in favor of going to war.
That, and they all said
okay, but that's the difference between what's going on in this health care bill.
Right.
Because in the vote to go to war against Iraq or Afghanistan or what have you, the Congress was heard for. There was bipartisan support. The vote went through and they voted in favor of this. What's happened this time is, first of all, there's zero bipartisan support for that, because none of the Republicans voted for any of this crap.
But how many of the amendments from the Republicans were inserted into the bill?
I suppose some of them were. Actually, yeah, I suppose some of them were.
Over 100.
But zero Republicans voted for
after
this.
amendments that the Republicans offered were approved. in committees throughout the entire process. I mean, we understand. Look,
Okay.
I understand why
the
zero Republicans voted for this. It's all more to do with political stuff than about the bill itself. Even Senator Grassley came out today. He's talking, oh, the bill's okay. Well, wait a second. You just said, like, what 4 or 5 days ago it wasn't good. You know, I understand what this is all about. This is all about gaining seats, controlling back Congress, more to do than that than saving people's lives or taking care of people who have pre-existing conditions or keeping on your kids after the age of 26, which is actually a good thing in some circumstances because, you know, it's good to have health care. I don't see where there's a problem with that.
Well, the problem. I think the problem is with the process that this went through. I think people that embrace freedom and a representative form of government are repulsed by what they've seen their representatives do. Well, I'm telling you that they are.
How many times did the Republicans use reconciliation as part of their process to get stuff through?
No, you know. As far as that goes, I think those were like budgetary items. It wasn't a massive government overhaul.
S-chip?
Yeah,
that wasn't a massive program, S-chip?
No, I don't think it was. Nothing. I mean, there's universal agreement on that.
No, it's not.
That what was used, how this was foisted on the American public, was something that isn't quite what the democracy was meant to be.
In your neck of the woods, in your little, in your circle, you believe that. In my circle, we don't believe that.
To quote the president, that's what elections are for. And you know what? You could be right. You could be right. I might just be in this echo chamber of people that are upset, and really this is just a wonderful thing, and it will all become clear that having the government run all this stuff is just a beautiful thing, and it's all going to be fine.
There you go again, the government running all this stuff.
Well, if the government isn't running it, why?
Can I go into a government insurance program right now? Was that the item that passed?
No,
Can I get into a government
but
program?
they are controlling the healthcare industry, the insurance carriers,
and they are industry where the rates were going skyrocketing year after year. As a person with a kid,
why are the rates skyrocketing?
You tell me.
Well,
I mean, you're the one with the poll here. You tell me.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think the average profit margin is for these healthcare companies? In other words, the president has gone across this country demonizing healthcare companies for gouging and skyrocketing rates and all the rest. What's the profit margin?
You tell me.
4%.
4%.
4% is peanuts. These healthcare companies are not getting rich. They're making money. It's ironic because people in the federal government have no concept of making money. They only have the concept of spending it. So they could care less that a company actually makes a little bit of money. So a 4% margin is peanuts. So there's nothing in here in this bill that cuts costs. It doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, when the bill is projected to cut Medicare costs by 21%, that's not a plan. So,
look, I'm happy.
It's a long land.
I love doing this show because we can just repeat this, put it on YouTube. We can make clips. We can just dissect this stuff apart, and I can get like this great poll from the Medicus firm. Or previous comments you made in your emails, I'll be more than happy to debunk that stuff, put it up there, and we can have a good old go at it.
What I'd like to talk to, we have about 5 minutes left. There was a. Is
she a senator or is she a representative of the House of Representatives? That was from one of your emails, Maxine Waters.
I stand by that statement.
Senator Maxine Waters. Senator Maxine Waters, you sure?
She's a representative.
Well, whatever. I mean,
I think L.A. isn't she?
Okay, I tried to be nice and give her a title.
That was a bit of a promotion.
Right.
All right. I just want to talk briefly about process in the public discourse, because I have all the respect in the world for you, although I disagree with a lot of what you have to say.
Same here.
But I really enjoy the give and take. There have been accusations, and I do think that there is the potential, and this will come up in the immigration debate coming up, that to try to undercut anyone else's position, if you cry racism, then it undercuts whatever you have to say.
Right, of course.
And it kind of stifles intellectual give and take on any particular issue. And I don't think it serves our democracy very well.
Absolutely not.
Okay, that said, the playing of the race card kind of thing, I really have no respect for it. And I remember when Jimmy Carter, remember that? I was ticked that day. Jimmy Carter, this is 6 months ago, said anyone who disagrees with this health care, it's racist, it's racist. And I disagree with the health care. I don't have a racist bone in my body.
No, you don't, but we know we saw some images I brought from a 9/11 rally. We saw some really disturbing stuff that was clearly racist, that was clearly over the top.
Completely denounced
on 9/11, might I add. that rally happened.
Yeah, no,
that day.
He had some video of, I don't know, swastikas or all kinds of bad stuff, and it was completely denounced by me.
We both denounced it.
But something happened to you, and I don't know if you'd be willing to share or how much you want to talk about.
I won't get into the actual image itself because I didn't have enough time to doctor it up. But again, this is from an organization, a group of people, fanatics. I can clearly call these people racist because I monitored them for a number of years. I watched them for a number of years. I documented their stuff for a number of years. And I can tell you without question, this is a racist, bigoted, out-of-control organization that should be denounced by every public official here in Danbury. Unfortunately, we have some public officials in Danbury who are linked with this organization. And I was at a healthcare rally, and you know me, I'm not going to go there to stir the pot. I'm going to go there and just report on what happens and bring back the images and bring back the footage. And one of the great things about my website is, like, look, I have this point of view, but I will always put up as much information about what I'm talking about so you can form your own opinion. I think that's the fairest thing to do. And I went to the rally, and I had a death threat put on my car.
With a racial
slur and a homophobic slur. And that's the type of stuff that really just irks me. Because it's one thing to talk about policy. That's cool. You have your point of view, I have my point of view. We can go at it, do a little crossfire here. But when you take it to that next level, which a lot of these people here in Danbury do, especially with a certain group of anti-immigrants in this area. Some of these people actually have talk shows on this very channel, which is outrageous. When they do this type of stuff, they poison the whole atmosphere. And not only that, when you have elected officials who do not denounce these people wholeheartedly, that screws up everything. And that goes to the whole health care thing. When you have people like throwing bricks through windows, calling up congressmen, blah, blah, blah. No, they should be denounced and thrown out immediately. And I said this going back to the whole Tea Party movement, because there were some images during the Tea Party. I was just like, wait a second, that's out of control. You got to stop this. It should be denounced.
And this kind of brings us full circle to what I talked about at the beginning of the show, which was the Battle of Ridgefield, April 27, 1777. In this democracy, we still have the right to vote. We still have the right to bring our grievances to the ballot box. We don't need to bear arms and throw bricks through windows. So that is what I am promoting. And I'd like to say, whoever left this note on Al's car, if you'd like to come down to the station, I'd love to have a word with you. It's 5 Shelter Rock Road, Comcast Studios. It's a live show. We wrap up at 10. Come on down and let's talk about who's going to leave anonymous notes and what they're going to say. Come on down. 5 Shelter Rock Road.